What's up guys, Jason here coming at you with part 2 of the DM Sets Ranked series, where I look at all of the sets released in the DM TCG and rank them from worst to best. In the previous video I covered the 4 sets I wouldn't really want to buy if I went into a shop to buy some DM cards. In this video I'm going to show you the sets, well, in the middle of the pack. So these are ones that I would at least consider. As a quick reminder, the criteria I'm using to govern my picks are 1. Can I pull any iconic cards from the set? 2. How many playable cards are there in the set? And 3. Can I play a good sealed format with the set? So now that that's out of the way, let's get this party started. Starting off on the list, we have DM12 Thrash of the Hybrid Mega Creatures. They are, of course, known for introducing the Vortex Evolution mechanic. I originally had the set way higher than I did here, but I think it's just fallen steadily in my rankings. Now, to start things off, I think all of the Vortex Evolution foils are iconic in their own right. I also think Wise Starnard is really good, as is Death Phoenix. Cruel Naga is kind of crap. Or Pegasus also not very good, and Soul Phoenix I don't think is very good either. In terms of the other foils though, we also have Terra Dragon Archie de Lucerna, who has some sort of a niche in the form of acting as a hand guard against Cranium Clamp and Lost Soul, so some decks are squeezing him in there. Necro Dragon Jagravine is not super terrible. I don't think he's particularly remarkable either, but he's just kind of there. And we also have Killstein Nebula Elemental, so this is the wave striker that makes the deck really good. It gives each of the other creatures in the battles a plus 5k power and blocker and double breaker, so once Killstein hits the field you kind of expect to win. It's interesting that it doesn't give just all wave strikers blocker, it gives everyone blocker. So now that the foils are out of the way, we can have a look at some of the playable cards. I think Cosmic Darts is a pretty interesting gimmick. I don't think it's particularly good. Your opponent chooses one of your shields, looks at it. If it's a spell, you can cast it. So there are some really ridiculous combos you can do. Pair that with Lost Soul, pair that with some of the invincible spells. But yeah, you kind of gotta build a whole deck around it, and it seems kind of gimmicky to me. I think it's restricted, or the Hall of Fame in the OCG. I'm not 100% sure. We also have Gigavrand, who we mentioned in our, well, he was an honorable mention in our top 10 Darkness cards. Just thought he was worth shouting out there. I don't think Steamroller Mutant's a very good wave striker. Won't go over that. Also have Mecha Dragon's Breath. You guys know I'm a big fan of this card. I think there's a lot of potential there. So yeah, it's pretty cool that we have that in the set. As for the multi-race evolution, so these aren't quite Vortex, but they can evolve from either of the stipulated civs. I think it's just Hydrus who's really good. I don't think the others are particularly great. I think they're okay, but I don't think they're super amazing. So moving on, it's got a shout out Val here, another playable Angel Command. Also have Gigabells, which is basically Locomotiver. I don't know if that's points or not, but at least it makes for a better sealed format. Wing-Eye Moth is curious. Kind of acts as a sort of a draw engine for decks that don't have water or light, since it's nature. And Belmol. Farzi is also pretty good. When he dies, retrieve a spell, so I think he's a lot more versatile than Val in that regard. And yeah, Windmill Mutant's basically Horridworm, cheap Slayer blocker and Gigaslug, and bunch of other wave strikers. So these wave strikers are pretty good, but they don't make for a great sealed format experience. So you have a lot of bits and pieces here and there that can bolster certain archetypes, and I guess that's not bad per se, but I think in terms of playable cards, you don't really get that many. In terms of sealed format, I don't think it's particularly great either. You have a bunch of these random guys, but everyone's just kind of beating down each other. The other gimmick of this set is the clone spell line, so I think they have one for each civ. Basically, you get to snowball the effect for each cloned card of that same name in either player's graveyard. I haven't really found a way to break it. Haven't really bothered testing it. I don't think it's super duper broken, but it's okay, I guess. But yeah, because of the lack of super duper staples, I guess, and the lack of a good sealed format experience, this set is at the bottom of the pack, despite the iconic foils. Moving on to the next pick, we have Epic Dragons of Hyper Chaos. At first I thought there wasn't really much to look at in the set. Oh, I guess I should also mention this is the set that brought us the Turbo Rush mechanic. It wasn't super popular, but I think it's a really interesting idea. So yeah, anyway, going back to the topic of discussion, for Epic Dragons, we actually do have a handful of iconic foils. We obviously have Super Necro, we have Super Terra, and Uber Dragon Bejeweled for the fans. I think Natasha also has some really cool artwork. I'm not sure if that's something that should add points, but I just thought I'd point that out. Emperor Quasla, Cyberlord, but no, he sucks. Let's not look at him. As far as other foils go, I think this guy is sort of iconic in the sense that he is the strongest blocker, at least to the best of my knowledge, in the TCG. And Magma Dragon Jagalzor, I think, is actually pretty playable. If you read his Turbo Rush effect, so basically, if any of your other guys broke a shield, everybody gets Speed Attacker. So I think you could make some pretty interesting mid-range strategies there. Moving on, outside of the namesake, we also have some interesting playable cards in the form of Soul Gala. Soul Gala is a great card for Guardian or Rush decks. Powers himself up when a spell is activated, but he's a blocker that can attack people. We have Eureka Charger, which is a card I think is better on paper than in practice. Just draw a card. I think this makes for a good addition to a sealed format deck, and it combos well with Essence Elf in the try-hard format, shall we call it. We also have Corpse Charger. You guys know I love this card. If you think about it, this set actually gave us a lot of strong cards for the RUB, or even not just RUB, just control archetypes in general. So with Corpse, put a creature in your graveyard into your hand, and then get a mana, obviously. Cranium Clamp, probably the one of the most hated cards in all of DM. Your opponent chooses and discards 2 cards from his hand. He can lock a lot of people out of the game if you opportunistically time your Cranium Clamps. Or even, maybe sometimes you can actually just Unga Bunga, it's just that good. What else do we have? We have Volcano Charger, so it's basically a 4-mana Crimson Hammer, but it helps accelerate mana. If you guys have watched some of my deck profiles, you will know that I think this is a very important card for RUB control. Quixotic Hero, another great card for Rush decks and Beast Folk decks alike. When another creature hits the field, gets plus 3k power, so your opponent's really got to think twice for how they want to deal with him. But yeah, so those are some of the playable cards, and I think this set also gives us the best Evo bait dragons. So we have Necro Dragon Gieland, 4 mana 6k, double breaker. When he battles, destroyed after it battles. So it's kind of similar to Bloody Skeeto in that regard. So when you break 2 shields, your opponent can just suicide into him, but he doesn't really have any major drawbacks. In the last entry we had, in DM12, I think that set is home to Necro Dragon Zalva, who when you summon him, also 4 mana, your opponent draws a card. I think that's pretty terrible. And speaking of terrible, we also have Terra Dragon Gamiratar. When you summon him, your opponent can also summon a creature for free. 4 mana 6k, but that's terrible. I wouldn't want to give my opponent free summon. So that's at least rectified by Terra Dragon Regarian. Pretty vanilla in the wider scheme of things, but 5 mana 4k, wholly inoffensive, and gets double breaker. Fire, we've got Magma Dragon Melgars, 4 mana 4k vanilla. So it gives us the best Evo bait dragons, who also work great in the context of sealed format. I feel like this deck works better than the previous set in sealed format as well, just because you have a little bit of a gimmick that you can support. Like I feel like Dimension Splitter can support some of the dragons here, whereas the Wave Strikers kind of need more to get rolling. You also have some Chargers, so you can have mana acceleration, and you have some of the try-hard cards here. So yeah, I really thought this set was actually a lot better than I imagined it to be. But yeah, so Epic Dragons, not bad at all. Next on the list we have DM2, Evo Resonators of Doom. This is the second set released in the overall DM game, and it introduced, as the name would suggest, the evolution mechanic. So yeah, I actually flip-flop a lot between this and the next entry, but if you really wanted to argue, I think all of these 4 sets are pretty interchangeable. So if you kind of like reorder them, I probably couldn't fault you for that. But anyway, going back to the topic of discussion, I think all of these foils are at least the super rares, are pretty iconic in their own right. They're pretty memorable, and because Duel Masters was probably at its most popular in the West when the set came out, these were all over the schoolyard. So I remember seeing a lot of Ladia Bale, Crystal Paladin, Ultracide, Valdios, and Fighter Dual Fang. I think only 2 of them are playable, Fighter Dual Fang and Crystal Paladin. But yeah, whatever. The other foils are kind of crap, like Ethel is not very good, Plasma Chaser, not very good, Dark Titan McGinn, not very good, especially as far as demon commands go, which I don't think is a very good race. He's probably one of the worst ones in my view. And Balzar Dragon is actually okay in terms of iconic-ness, because he is a dragon, but I don't think he's very good. And Xenomantis, giant insect, can be blocked by a Thrash Crawler and stuff, but let's not talk about him. So if we were to go over the set card by card, this gives us a lot of playable cards. Diamond Cutter is a pretty gimmicky card, and I haven't been able to break it, but I think it has a lot of potential. Larbagear, we all know this card's pretty good in the rush decks and that sort of stuff. Logic Cube can be pretty good, search your deck for a spell. Can come in handy in certain situations. Magrus, we all know how good Aqua Hulkus is. Magrus is Aqua Hulkus, but slightly slower. Bigger. I think this is a fantastic card, and I think he is the best initiate, at least the best base initiate at the very least. We've also got Valigadon Guardian, who can command a whole archetype to himself. When you put him into the battle zone, retrieve a spell from your graveyard. Not too much of that, but yeah. We've also got Corile, so I talked about Cranium Clamp being one of the most hated cards in the game. I think Corile is up there with Cranium Clamp. Bounce a creature to the top of your opponent's deck. Yes, there is sort of counterplay to that, like if you're just playing Aqua Hulkas and stuff, but no, I think Corile is really good at invalidating a lot of strategies. It can be very, I don't want to say unhealthy. Yeah, I think Corile is pretty unhealthy to the game. Let's not beat around the bush. Crystal Lancer, probably my favorite Liquid People evolution. Put on, can't be blocked, and gets double breaker, so super strong finisher. Horrid Worm. When this creature attacks, your opponent discards a card at random from his hand. Strikes fear into the hearts of many. Whether it's playing in a budget format, limited format, try-hard format, whatever, man. This guy, if you can't deal with him, you're in some serious trouble. Chaos Worm is also a neat card. When you put him onto the field, blow up one of your opponent's creatures. So as you know, we really like this guy. We have a mono darkness deck dedicated to him. And who could forget Lost Soul, one of my personal favorite cards. Your opponent discards all cards from his hand. Looks like you're getting forgetful. Yes, I am, seeing as that I almost forgot to mention Lost Soul. We also have Burst Shot, that's not bad. We've got Rumblegate. I think this is kind of gimmicky, but it can be pretty good in certain archetypes, I think. Bark Whip, I love Bark Whip. He's very good. And Essence Elf, another one of my favorites here. Spells cost 1 less to cast. Rumbling Terrahorn is also pretty decent. I shouldn't forget to mention. Basically Dimension Gate with a body, but because he's not really a weenie, I guess I consider him a mini boss of sorts. So yeah, we've a surprising amount of playable cards to varying degrees, I guess, but yeah, it's very impressive turnout. Now, when it comes to sealed format, we also have a lot of other gimmicks to play with. We have Faunch the Oracle, who taps a creature when you summon him. 4 mana 2k, I guess could be a lot worse. We've also got some draw in the form of Hyper Squid Walter. We've got the draw in Plasma Chaser and in Thought Probe, so that's pretty decent as well. Maroo's for the memes. And yeah. The only main problem I have with this set in sealed format is that the evolutions are pretty awesome, but there isn't much for them to evolve from. Like if you look at Guardians, you have Valley who's 5, Zadude who's 3, not great. Liquid People, probably some of the worst Liquid People in the game, and Aqua Bouncer and Aqua Shooter. I guess Aqua Bouncer in sealed format's not too bad. You bounce a creature, but he's 6 mana, so it's pretty expensive. I guess the Parasite Worms aren't too bad. You have Horde Worm, who's 3 mana, and Poison Worm, sorry, who's 4 mana. Humans, you just have this guy, I think. Mini Titan Get, whatever. And in Beast Folk, you've got a 3 mana form and a 4 mana. Could be a lot worse, but seeing as that a lot of the Beast Folks are just 2 mana, 2k vanilla-ish, yeah, that's kind of a letdown. So yeah, DM2, very, very solid set, I would have to say. Now for the best of the middle, Shadow Clash of Blinding Night, DM4. And now this is the first set to introduce the shield trigger effect on creatures. If you think about it, if you look at DMs 1 to 3, all of the shield trigger effects are actually on spells. Now, we all know this set is famous for your favorite Balam, Master of Death. And also his counterpart, Alcadias, who I think is much better. It's kind of funny how they gave Alcadias very rare, and they gave Rimuel super rare. This guy is like super terrible, but hey, if that makes Alcadias easier to get, I'm not complaining. I think all of the other foils are kind of forgettable and kind of bad. I guess Trox isn't too bad, I guess. He's kind of funny. And, oh, I guess Galk-Life Dragon. Galk-Life Dragon is pretty good, I would have to say. When you summon him, you blow up all light creatures that have power 4k or less. That's your Sarius, that's the Magris. You've also got, the name escapes me. You've got Fal, and of course Public Enemy number 1, Tajamal. So I think Galk-Life Dragon is a pretty solid tech card in control decks, or even some mid-range decks if you think blockers could be a bit of a problem. So when it comes to playable non-foil cards, let's have a look. We've got Ares, who's not super bad, I guess. So 5 mana, 9k. Great counter to a lot of bosses. I mean, if you think about it, he runs over Bolmedius and most of the playable evolutions, so that's kind of annoying. Your opponent can't even Baz him, so that's pretty good. You've also got Colon the Oracle, 4 mana, 1k, shield trigger. Very clutch, tap one of your opponent's creatures. It's kind of funny to me how there's a similar card in the form of Hunter Cluster, who is just a shield trigger blocker that can attack people, but he's just so much worse, because like Colon will straight up stop the attack, right, because he taps a creature, but then Hunter Cluster has to give up his life to stop the attack. That's seems kind of pointless the more I think about it. So yeah, Hunter Cluster, not very good. But you know what is very good? Mysterious Sonic Guardian. When another creature hits the field, draw a card. So this guy can be an engine all on his own. I think he might be overrated by some people, but still a strong card nonetheless, just because of how far the game can spiral out of control if left unchecked. Sarius, 2 mana, 3k, vanilla blocker. Initiate, and I think the best base Initiate to evolve into Craze Valkyrie and all the other guys, just because he's so cheap and not the easiest to kill at 3 mana. Aquaguard, mainstay in Liquid People decks, I would say. 1 mana, 2k blocker, great evolution bait. Hydro Hurricane is a card I think has a lot of potential. I haven't really done much personal testing with the card, but it can be very devastating as a combo of sorts. Like for each light creature, bounce a mana, and then for each dark creature you have in the field, bounce a creature. So light bounces mana, dark bounces creatures for your opponent. And speaking of light and darkness, we have Marinomancer, who also, like Fal, commands a deck archetype all to himself. So when he hits the field, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and grab all light and dark cards, discard the rest. So if your deck is built well, or you have a little bit of luck, Marinomancer can actually end up being a +3, so that's pretty wild. Change of Sacrifice for the memes, that's it. Locomotiver, another mainstay in a lot of decks, 4 mana, shield trigger, creature. Your opponent discards a card at random. Pretty good. Photosite is basically the dark counterpart to Ares. We already talked about that. Mongrel Man, you guys gave me some hate because I didn't really like him. When another creature is destroyed, you may draw a card. But this guy helps run engines, so yeah, he's worth shouting out at the very least. Shadow Moon for the Mono Darkness decks. It's not loading. Come on, Shadow Moon. There we go. Yeah. Magma Rex, also not bad, 5 mana, 3k, so when he hits the field, blow up all 1k creatures. That's Locomotiver, that's Colon, that's Hunter Cluster, and in a more extended format you've got Bronze Arm, Propeller Mutant, blah 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 blah. Last but not least, we are going to look at Torcon. This guy looks very simple, 2 mana, 1k vanilla shield trigger creature, but I think Beast Folk players will tell you that this guy is actually really important, since your opponent breaking into a Torcon early means you can just evolve into a free Bark Whip and then you can gain control of the field. So Torcon, pretty good. Now, when it comes to sealed format, there are a lot of cool things you can do just because there are so many random shield trigger creatures. Like you've got Ambergrass, you've got Aqua Jolter, you've got Gregorian Worm. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that you can play with. You also have cards that interact very well with each other. So for example, you have Gulan Rias, who is a Darkness Hate card. You can see the effect. And then you have Purple Piercer, who is the Darkness equivalent of that. You can also combo stuff very easily with Mongrel Man and Mist Rias. You know, you don't really need any specific things to get the engine running. You can just summon them, and then there you go. And yeah, you also have some really neat combo cards like Mega Detonator. So discard any number of cards from your hand and then choose any number of creatures in your battle zone, give them Double Breaker. Not a very good card in the grand scheme of things, but in sealed format I think it could win some games or just at least put your opponent on the back foot. Exploding Cactus is another example of a card that interacts well with other cards. When you have a light creature in the battle zone, it gets plus 2k power, so you have a 3 mana 4k creature that can attack people. So I think in terms of playable cards, DM2 might have the edge over DM4, but it's really hard for me to say. Maybe I should say these sets are tied. And when I was doing this earlier, when I first made the list, I was like, nah, DM2 is better. And then when I did my first recording earlier in the day, I was like, you know what? I think DM4 might be better. So it's really hard to say, but yeah, I think they're about the same. So yeah. Now that concludes part 2 of the DM sets ranked videos. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'm going to bring you the last part, the DM sets that I would like to spend a lot of money on in the next video. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.